Met Frank at the President's Conference earlier this year. At the time, I had a client case that had presented itself, and I started the process of determining which insurance carrier to work with and potentially connect with one of their tax advisors. And at the Vice President's Conference, Frank was introduced, and I felt that it'd be a good opportunity to connect with him, and that way he would be able to offer an unbiased approach to this potential situation. So after the VP conference, I started to work on the case with my client, and at that point I recognized that I did need some assistance in terms of dealing with the corporate tax part of the equation. So I had contacted Frank by email, and we had a follow-up phone call, and I did explain to him the case and the opportunity, and he felt that it was something that he could assist me with. So after that, we ended up, I provided him with the information that he needed, and we did have a follow-up meeting in person to go through the scenario where he was able to ask me some additional questions, and then at that point he was able to take that away and work on a proposal, which we then looked at meeting with the client afterwards. The next step in the process, quite frankly, was the client and I went back and forth with Frank, because the client did have some additional questions as well, and Frank was very clear in providing the answers.
And when I met with the client, the process was just ensuring that we had our facts correct. The corporate structure was a bit refined, and there was discussion as to what next steps were for us to implement the correct corporate structure. This didn't come as a surprise to any of us at the table, because it was one of the open items that we had as part of our discussion. Again, the presentation we brought was not meant to be a complete presentation, so it allowed the open discussion as to how we would structure the deal so that it worked as efficiently as possible. With this client, again, being a financially focused person, he wanted to see the spreadsheets, and he came back several times and asked for different alterations and different iterations of the original numbers that we began with.
With the client, we ended up having approximately, I believe it was 2, maybe 3 meetings by the time we started off with the initial presentation, with a follow-up, and then finally completing the application and submitting the application. I think what the client really appreciated was the fact that there was some tax benefit in implementing this corporate strategy. I find that most individuals just don't understand the impact of owning corporately owned insurance in a corp. So Frank did a very good job of explaining, what he was currently doing, because he did have retained earnings in a portfolio within the corp, and the impact of what that investment would look like 10 to 15 years down the road, and then compare the impact of investing in the corporate life insurance and providing the investor, or sort of the client, with an income stream at retirement without really worrying about any major investment risk. I have involved Frank in actually some additional cases after this initial one, so we're currently working on about 3, and I feel, I've been in the industry for 25 years, I have no issues with preparing an insurance case or an illustration, but understanding the individual client's tax situation in detail, it's not something that I can really do, because I'm not an accountant. So bringing in someone with Frank's expertise definitely helped. I believe helps me bring that case across the finish line.